up? Void Bastards, or what if Dead Space was full of Brits? I'm so tired of retro-ass modern games with their pixel art style, half-baked tributes to older classics, and if it's a 3D game, exaggerated warping and blurring. Heck, I'm tired of this flood of new boomers trying so hard to be like Doom Eternal. I just want something different for once. Maybe a game with a comic book style look. Oh, and make it a roguelike, because luck turns me the fuck on. Also, I'm dumb enough for some reason. Yes, roguelikes. It's a type of game that I've come to enjoy. It started out with, well, Rogue from 1980. However, there is several of games that predated, but Apple Manor Like just doesn't roll off the tongue, does it? Wait, hold on. If the genre is called roguelike, what do you classify rogue as then? Genre names can be terrible, can't they? To put it simply, a roguelike is a game where you have a randomized playthrough that you must get through. They can have randomly generated levels, randomly generated enemy encounters, player characters with random strengths and weaknesses, and not least, permadeath. If you die, you have to do it all over again. No two playthroughs are the same, especially if you're allowed to upgrade your character's equipment, which can make the early stages a little bit easier. That's why I love games like Vampire Survivors, Dicey Dungeons, Rogue Legacy, and others. However, trying to review a roguelike can be rather difficult due to the RNG nature of them, and some of them can be considered as just roguelikes, like these that I've just mentioned. Genre names can be terrible, can't they? But I will try my hardest to review one of them, and thankfully this one's an FPS, I'm at ease. Void Bastards is a 2019 game from Blue Manchu, published by Humble Bundle. It was co-developed by the co-founder of Irrational Games, who co-created System Shock 2, and also Jared Woods, better known as Farbs. If the pseudonym doesn't give you any hint, he made ROM Check Fail and Captain Forever. I'm more familiar with the former. It's about you defeating enemies in a level, except every few seconds everything changes. Player character, goons, background, and even their behaviors, all based on old games like Mario, Spy Hunter, and Quicks of all games. So if you connect 2 and 2 together, we're in for a treat. You know it's a good start when this is the title screen with music that's quite oppressively banging, and I mean it in a good way. For story, you really shouldn't care that much. This game is nothing more than a giant fetch quest. You need to find or craft 2 or 3 important objects in order to get to the next act or depth or whatever. That's basically it really. No triggers or backstory, no audio logs, no nothing. Good, makes my job a whole lot fucking easier after Far Cry 3. The basic premise is that a prison ship got ransacked by pirates in an intoxicating nebula, and the automated warden is forced to rehydrate and release one prisoner at a time to find the required stock to fix everything, jump back to the processing center, and hopefully be granted freedom in the end. And here's one of them trying to escape with no ammo, only to be killed by pirates. Try as you might, I know I have, but you can't escape the prologue sequence alive. But at the very least, every prisoner starts with a nifty care package which can be upgraded as you go further. I'll get to that. The plot isn't this game's strongest point, but the company makes up for it, with its script relying on its very British dry humor, mostly helped by the computer, played by that narrator guy from the Stanley Parable.
Oops. As a WCG penal client, your citizen card has been shredded. Don't worry, you'll find parts to construct another one from on nearby vessels. WCG imposes severe penalties for self-asphyxiation. You can requisition supplementary oxygen in Atmo modules. Have you thought of a career as a person who travels through space picking up junk?
I think I've seen this computer character before. Hey, that thing called me a twit! Right, let's just jump into the first derelict ship, which is actually a tutorial before you get to the real deal. You always start with this guy, unless you want to skip the tutorial portion, but after you die, it's gonna be completely random from there. That's the nature of a roguelike, or maybe in this case an arcade game with meta progression? Can I just say once again that genre names can be terrible? For graphics, it has that Doom-like look, as in the enemies and weapons you're holding are actually sprites. However, instead of pixelated monsters, they look like cutouts from a comic book. Everything here looks like it got ripped straight out of a comic book actually, and I fucking love it. The lighting in the ships, as well as the cell shading and the text when shit happens, also helps selling the aesthetic. While I like the show of sprites with big pixels like Doom and all that, I think I prefer this look better. It pops so good, you know. The enemy designs are no slouch either, even if a few look like parodies of other games. The outpatient meatballs remind me of the Keko demons a lot. Hell, they even shoot stuff at ya. And the spooks resemble the compilers from Marathon. Sorry, Red. I tried playing that game and I wasn't intrigued, but there are minutes at least. The menus are thankfully straightforward, none of that shoulder buttons for page turning crap for a game with a comic book look, and speaking of which, the cutscenes are also inspired by comic books, so much as they're just comic books with basic animatic stuff for movement. Hey, with an art style like this, I don't have any complaints. I don't pay much attention to the flavor text, but keeping with the comedic approach of the game, the randomized subscriptions for the so-called clients can be funny in a darkly way. Like how someone got a harsh sentence for something rather petty, or just downright silly, like this one who's in prison for going off the beaten path, or another for bumping into some businessman. Gives off that dystopian vibe here. The system is flawed. Completely. Sound design is great. I actually like that the sound from the next room gets muffled when the door is shut, as well as the echoing in larger ones, plus the footsteps from the enemies. The screws gives me a lot of dread. Also, I just love the weapon sounds, especially the SMG equivalent, way better than the MP5 in GTA Vice City. For voice acting, everyone's British, ah!
Alright pals, we've got a runner over here. The Bampot's pod is jammed, so fan out and scalp him.
A tethered pirate vessel is preventing use of the Steve.
I should have expected it, but I like it. The juvies are annoying as fuck, and the personalities reflect that, cursing included. The scribes are shoddy when spotted, the spooks are fittingly foreboding, the tourists are anxious when near, the patient hats? Not as screamy as the kamikaze fellas from Serious Sam, but they sure love to scream when spotted. The ship announcement systems are all just text-to-speech guff, except for two, which are voiced by actual people.
If you haven't signed over to the inquiry waiver, you're not part of the railway.
Passengers using XTC ships are requested to keep their shrieking and moaning below 80 decibels.
So at least there's that. And yes, the warden is a funny guy and all, but I'd rather not repeat myself. I quite like the music here. When you're trying to be stealthy or just waltzing around, the tunes are subtle yet fitting. The calm before the storm and all that. And when you get spotted, the music jumps to overdrive, and you try to either escape or face your enemies with your guns. And it's always satisfying when the music comes down after you're safe and sound. Though the music kicks in even when the action is far away from you, like an ally attacking an enemy, but still. And the music is unique to each ship type. For instance, the Lux ships, whenever you're in alert mode, have this boppy number which I quite love. And the Krell ones have that Western inspired sound, with the harmonica when the alert phase starts and ends. Hilarious. Can't forget about the in-between stuff when you're in the Steve. The star map is brilliant, really captures the loneliness of our space very well. Although, whenever I hear it, there's just something familiar about it. I just can't put my finger on it. Nah, I really can't. Let's forget what I said and just move on to gameplay. Why am I even sticking with this body? I'm a shifting fox. I can morph it to whatever I want. Oh yeah, this is more like it. This is an FPS game, so it's not surprising this uses the WASD scheme for movement, as well as shift the control for running and crouching respectively. However, while the latter is toggleable, the sprint is not, which is great. I didn't like how sprinting works in Far Cry 3 where it is toggleable, made me confused for a bit. The shooting is good, however, none of the weapons have secondary fire modes, which means the right click as well as the E key are used to use and pick up stuff. Somehow I got easily used to the right click thingy. It's about as convenient as the E key, and it basically became second nature. It's too bad I have to press the hand scanner every time I open and close the door instead of just the door, but minor setbacks. The moment-to-moment gameplay is nothing unique but fun to get through. All you do is find stuff and defend yourself from citizens just doing their business and other such hazards. And to do that, you have an assortment of weapons, which is a standard line of a pistol, shotgun, railgun, submachine gun, and a rocket launcher, but also some other devices like explosives, poison dart guns, and kitty bots, which can distract citizens while you do your business, to a taser, a shield gun, and even a weapon that makes a citizen your ally. While the gun selection is a rather meh, even if it's just silly versions of the standard guns, the other stuff is pretty great, especially the cluster flak and the kitty bots when fully upgraded. Once blown up, it leaves a cluster of nades for the final insult. Priceless. However, for challenge's sake, you can only bring one firearm, one indirect weapon, and one device with you when exploring a ship. I don't mind much, at least I can carry one more weapon than in a Call of Duty game. While I like almost all the weapons, there's a few that I avoid using. While the toaster railgun can shoot through windows, you have to hold down the shoot button to build up and shoot the laser at them. It's more situational than practical, really. The bouncer deflects anything thrown at you, which is fine, but I prefer passive and explosive stuff anyway. And the right spiker is just a slower poison spiker, so I ended up ignoring it. This also has stealth mechanics, by the way. Don't make much noise and sneak around enemies to not get spotted. It's basically as all hell, but as someone who used to work as a spy for an agency, I prefer going guns blazing. And if that doesn't work, just find another route. These ships at least aren't very linear. It's only difficult if I end up in a dead end or a vent isn't open. When you start up, it is recommended to sneak around. After all, you start with a weak pistol, but once you have most of the stuff, as well as upgraded some of them, still feels like an afterthought. Speaking of enemies, while the list is not as large as, say, the Doom games, it's still varied. Some citizens are easy to kill, such as the janitors and the scribes, plus the tourists, where you just have to run away after going near them. Others are annoying, like the outpatients, the aforementioned cacodemon equivalents, except they shoot a lot more, as well as the patient heads and the spooks, who like to disappear and make you look around for them. And then you have the really annoying ones, the juvies. These small ones love to hover around and just be a nuisance, amplified by how they talk. You know, like juvenile delinquents. You also have the screws, big spongy fucks you rather run away from than to confront ahead, and they first show up in the first step. The game starts out simple, but as you go deeper down the nebula, you'll encounter some weirder and more challenging foes as you explore. For instance, the Zeks, who shield themselves in the front. If you do the game stealthily, it's probably best to sneak behind and shoot a couple of poison darts at them. But you know me, I'm better off throwing a cluster grenade or unleashing my inner Anna Williams and just shoot a rocket at them. But it isn't just that. At the same time, you get ships with harder versions of regular citizens, such as the globetrotters dropping radioactive goo after exploding, and the friendly tourists who are clingy. Either that or just shoot faster, have better health, or drop little explosive shits to avoid. And be wary of gun points, especially the rocket launching ones, as well as the security cams, because if you stay in their line of sight for long enough, depending on the distance, a sackbot will come and kill you, bypassing even the locked doors. And they're really hard to destroy. Better find and disable the security before it's too late. But like all problems, it can be solved with money, or merit in this case. If you have the credentials by getting a specific item or two, you can pay to override the tours to work for you. Same goes for the sackbots if you can manage to sneak behind them after activating them. Either that or just disable it completely, either temporary or permanently with enough cash. Merits can also be useful to extend your oxygen supply or health bar, get the location of the enemies, get a longer triple damage boost at the break rooms, and even get another useful trigger for your troubles. Downside is that unless you're in certain ships, merits are rare to come by, so you're always gonna be broke for a while. And if that's not painful enough, you also have to check if there aren't any pirate ships traveling nearby. As you saw in the opening level, there are pirates in the nebula. If you come in contact with them, they'll follow you no matter what. And once you dock, they will tear into the vessel you're in, jam the Steve, and hunt you down as you try to find a way to release it. You can't try stomping them, there's just 3 of them for each frigate. Downside, they're hard as balls, spongy as heck, and murders as all cunt. I had an encounter with a pirate frigate once, it didn't end well, but if you manage to stock up on torpedoes, one will automatically be shot at them when it's in the vicinity, and get some cool loot on your way. Give me the cash! The ships and docks themselves are divided by types, each with unique looks. For instance, the lock ships have some food, and maybe a slot machine to try your luck. Pack ships contain a few torpedoes you can collect. CNT ones are filled with money, and some can let you call for a supply ship to give you some stuff as you travel. Corral ones have hold cargo of all kinds of materials. WGC ones have the tombs with bullets and other ammo, as well as these dry rooms for some. XLN ones have medical rooms that can restore your health, and even overboost it if you have the cash. And the Authority ones have kitty bots, and lots of data you can collect, as well as warp keys for faster travel for some. However, as I said earlier, this is the roguelike, which means the ships have some random attributes, sets of enemies, and amounts, and all that jazz. They can either make or break your game, mostly break if you frequently dock into the ships, but if your ship has the required item for progression, then that logic still applies. You don't need to dock into every ship, however, you also have to pay attention not only your fuel counter, but also the food one. They're necessary for your travels, as the latter gives you a bit of health as you travel or rest. However, if you don't have any food left, you'll starve and lose some of it. And if you run out of fuel, well, you just have to bear a few days of being dragged by your ship's momentum and slowly reach the next point, as well as consuming more food in the process. Other stuff include whales that eat you, squids that destroy big ships, space mines, DNA strands that add or replace a trait for you, for better or worse, garbage ships that contain a random part if you reach it in time, shots which gives you one free fuel can and sandwich, as well as the obvious ATMs that let you buy stuff, free shit you can take, and the dreaded hungry hermit. If you land on that asteroid, say goodbye to all your food. And if you die, well, you lose all your ammo, cash, and other crap you haven't recovered yet, and another one will take your place for randomized traits that can be helpful or detrimental. Hey, at least the parts get carried over to the next client. Thankfully, you can get something called a heart stopper, which basically gives you another life and lets you continue your merry way, as well as health upgrades, damage reducing stuff, and other just stuff on the way. And if you don't like your traits, you can try your luck with the DNA strands on the star map, or dock into a WGC therapy ship that contains a device you can do just that. And I think that's all there is to it. Oh, this game has a crafting system. Because of course this needs a crafting system. You don't find guns here, you must craft them. As you scavenge for parts, you find some junk which get recycled to materials at the re-entry. And you can use said materials to craft parts in order to craft devices and upgrades. As long as you have enough materials, of course. I mean, it is simple, but it can get annoying when you want a part for an upgrade or a plot important device, but needs a lot of crap to craft said parts. So you'd rather just travel through the stars and find the part Steve has located. Like, holy shit, I need to get a whole lot of slack for this? That's gonna take a lot of hours to get enough, fuck me. But it can be satisfying when you get enough to create the thing you need to progress, so there's that. I'd still rather scavenge for shit though. But once you manage to find all the shit you need to get out of the nebula, which took me almost 9 hours in this playthrough, you'll get a life sentence for all the killing and stealing you went through. Damn man, I'm a bag of dust forever, this universe man. Oh, and also a few challenges you can do, because of course a roguelike needs them, ranging from harder enemies, health detriments, increased parts rarity, and all that. For each one, you get brownie points to unlock more of them. That's great and all, but after one playthrough, I had my fill. So that was Void Bastards, and I enjoyed it quite well. The shooting and scavenging parts at least. Traveling can be meandering and crafting is a slog, but fighting shit is at least satisfying. The shooting and stealth mechanics are basic but effective, and the combat is a chuckle fest, even if I'm more focused on surviving and robbing stuff. Can be challenging and lay luck can fuck your run sometimes, but even then, I still recommend it. And apparently there's a follow-up of sorts from the same devs, Wild Bastards. I might try it out sometime later, but for next time, I'll be covering some random ass Doom mods, I guess. You know what? It would be a shame to waste it in one video. I'm gonna have a lot of mileage with this shape.